All right. What's going on? How's everybody doing? Hope everybody had a good weekend. Sound check is sounding good. All right, let's get into it. All right, so what we looking at this morning, we'll just start with a quick little rundown of how I'm seeing things play out. So we built up some inventory overnight, and then we started offloading that inventory around 5 Eastern time, of course. Every time frame I use is going to be based off the East Coast in the US. So around 5 we began to start this nice little rally to where we started letting go some of that inventory that we built overnight. You know, we just had this nice little slow climb. I don't think I got so the screens I'm sharing, it's too zoomed in for you to be able to really see it, but we would get, letting go a lot of that inventory up into the bell. We pretty much emptied our warehouse for the most part, and then we started to go into another phase of inventory collection at the open. And up until around 10 o'clock, that first 30 minutes, we spent a lot of time just budgeting and working out our warehouse and collecting inventory until we got the 10 o'clock. I think we had a ISM or something like that. Let me see. Yeah, we had the ISM manufacturing PMI that they were able to use to really, get the most out of the inventory that they collected within that first 30 minutes. So it was tricky in the way that they were moving price around. I woke up kind of on the wrong side of the bed, so to speak, to where I was just, I was off my game the whole morning session. So I woke up on time to do my morning report, my power range report that I post on my social media platforms, and ended up falling back asleep, waking back up like maybe 15 minutes before the open. I had to rush through that, and then I proceeded to trade. It wasn't terrible. This is kind of a balance between, my goal this week was to, be a little bit more patient with my setups. So I did that, but I was a little too patient. And that's always a struggle. Well, for me personally, is finding that balance between being patient with my setups in terms of like when I'm already in it and how I execute after I'm in it. Even taking that initial setup, because they can be a little tricky with how they move price around in relation to how I like to execute to initiate a position. So overall, long story short, is that I didn't execute the best that I could, and I've continued the kind of, it's almost a tradition at this point, but like the routine of me getting starting out the month in the red. So could have been a lot worse. So I didn't do terrible, but if I had to give it a grade, my execution this morning, if I had to give it a grade, I would give it like a C. Definitely some room for improvement, but I kind of got started off on the wrong foot this morning. Luckily, I was only trading live in one of the accounts, because part of this being off my frequency is I forgot to turn sim off in one of the other accounts, so I didn't take as much of a hit as I could have. So it's a bright spot. There's a positive to every negative. So now we found a nice little spot to set up shop between 160 and 180. I would say they have met their primary morning quota, and that was based mostly off of that first 30 to 35 minutes. And that's kind of that little breakdown of my morning session, how my session went. Kind of good segue into something that I kind of. So let me set this up the right way. I'm not the kind of person who likes to just keep doing, with the exception of trading, and even sometimes it spills over into that. But some things I can do. So I'm not the type of person that likes to just be always routine to a certain type of thing. Like just the creative side of me, I don't like the monotony of doing this exact same thing over and over. So the reason I'm saying that is because I'm kind of thinking about how I wanted to do these live streams, and it's kind of why y'all have seen a sort of shift to how I do these live streams. But what I don't want to get into the habit of doing, because it's just going to bore me and I'm going to not stick with it, is just coming here and just only reading price action for an hour or whatever. Because at this point it's kind of clear what I'm looking at. It should be clear what I'm looking at. After the last at least 4 or 5 streams, I've been pretty consistent with how I look at this price action. So right here, you should know that I'm looking at this as an inventory response at 150, right? And then there's a reason why I'm even doing it. It's not just to put out something on these platforms and to get likes and subscribes and all this stuff. There's a benefit, in my personal opinion, to understanding the market from this perspective. You don't necessarily have to, it don't have to be your thing to trade like this, but everyone that I've seen that understood this, it helped them, you know, become better at what they do. And so like one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about, kind of you know, not in the best way, segueing into one of the topics that I had in mind to talk about this morning, is trading the right way. And this topic comes to me a lot because I watch, me being passionate about this space, I listen to podcasts and all this stuff. I listen to different things that, you know, that talks about all the topics within this space, right? So, and it a lot of times it triggers me into certain thoughts, into certain energies, to where I have a lot to talk about. So, one of those things that triggered me last night, again, you know, this is a common trigger for me, is when people talk about trading the right way, or doing anything the right way. Really, it's not even just trading, but doing something the right way. And really, the only right way to trade, regardless of what anyone else tells you and what they have been able to have and what they have been able to accomplish, you know, based on their own beliefs and what works for them, the only real right way to trade is to trade that works best for you. And like, so a lot of the way that I've traded in the past has been anti what most people say is the right way to trade. Not completely, you know, I have some principles that I stick to, that I learned from other people, but I've actually attempted to trade in ways that people said are not the best way to trade. And it took a long time to even get to this point, because I had to break down all of those narratives that I had fed into before I could even get to this point. But trading what people say is not the right way to trade, and these are people who have made a lot of money in the market, and they say you should trade this way and you shouldn't do that, but going the opposite way, so, you know, kind of has actually opened up my understanding of this space beyond, you know, far beyond where I was at before I started, when I was just listening to what people said is the, you know, the way to trade, or the right way to trade. So really, it comes down to, you have to get to a point in your journey to where you're just willing to try anything out. And the beauty about this is that you don't have to try it out with your real money, with your own money, right? So we have sim trading, we have these funded programs that you can take advantage of and lower your risk significantly, to where I've had it to where I've used these accounts and to really test the boundaries of what I was able to do to find my right way to trade. And in this account, you know, while going through this, yeah, my P&L was like $3,000 or $4,000, but I only lost what I paid to have that evaluation account, which is like, you know, maybe $100. It's ranged from like less than $100 to, I think the most I've ever paid for one of these programs is, I might have picked one of the $300 ones. But I mean, that's a significant, you know, ratio in terms of what actually happened with how I was trying to understand this my right way to trade, and, you know, the risk side of that. So, well, if I would have tried to go at it with my own money, and I think you need to put some money up on the table to test yourself emotionally, and that really tests your discipline, because in sim, I have a hard time if I just only sim trade, I have a hard time being disciplined, right? So I think that you should put some of your own money up at some point, or, you know, risk your own money in some way, so that you actually test your emotional side and you really get the full, you know, the full spectrum of how you fit into this environment, right? So, and it just comes down to, you gotta really just be willing to push yourself to the limits, and that's how you find your right way to trade. right? You can listen to other people, take other people's advice. You can take my advice. You don't have to take my advice. You can take other people that's, on social media, on YouTube, and these other, there's a lot of TikTokers out there that are parroting a lot of ideas and beliefs. But, if it makes sense to you, it makes sense to you. And that's all that matters, right? If what I'm saying doesn't make sense to you, then listen to that and then go into that. If what I'm saying makes sense to you, listen to that and then go into, test it out. Don't just say just because I'm on here and it seems like I know what I'm talking about and you've seen me make money and all this stuff, that what I'm saying is scripture. Well, it could be scripture for me because it's working for me, but what works for me it's not going to necessarily work for you, right? And so that's really how you find your right way to trade, and which will lead to your edge. Yep, right is left. The objective is to be correct, holding your own truth, being honest with yourself. When I am here, right as opposed to correct, efficient, and optimal. And with those words, it's relative, and the measure being us, how we judge our movement. The mark, I feel like I read it because you corrected here. Anyway, you're definitely, of course, origins on point as usual. And so as I've been going through that, we've seen wholesale just, work their inventory, work their warehouse. I call it work their warehouse, to where we've, we've been budgeting this whole time as I've been going through everything that I was saying, going off on my little rant there. So now we have an inventory floor of 140, a supply range of 170 to 180, and supply is just, wholesale is just, doing what they do inside of that range, with automation sitting right in the middle of that, around 155 and 150. And now we're seeing a run back to supply off our first, within this little time period here. What is that, the last 15 to 20 minutes? We got our first automation response loan. And they're still working these orders up here, responding to our supply area at 170. So it's not, they're not really doing anything too exciting at the moment. They're just, running their business. Another thing that I want to I've been kind of stretching myself thin lately with different projects. So there's content that I've wanted to produce for the channel on Rumble, which I'm going to, go into a little bit more detail about certain ways that I approach this business, right? And then there's also, I want to make a video. I want to make a video to where I actually identify and clearly break down the different ways that I read this wholesale, the different components of wholesale by the way that I read it, right? And then that'll be like a good little reference point for any time that I talk about these certain things. I don't have to keep explaining, all the terminology every time with that I'm reading it, I'm narrating it live. We're pushing into supply. We pushed supply up a little bit. We did get a response into our new session high. Starting to pick up some momentum. We're really pushing the session high, but we are getting supply responses as expected. So we don't have any, as of yet, we don't have any strong momentum that are just, turn into what most would call a short squeeze. We're just pushing the highs. So it's put me back into the space of some more triggers, but I'm not gonna say the video or what I was watching last night, but it was several things that triggered a lot of, that triggered me in what I was watching last night. But I'm gonna stay balanced, and I'm not gonna make this a 2-hour rant. Say one more rant. But this one is a common one, and I actually did note this one down, so I'll go ahead and let's see where it goes. So I'll go ahead and start talking about it. To where you hear a lot of people, and it's kind of related to the first thing that I talked about, where you hear a lot of people use the word "you" a lot. So, for example, if I'm looking at this and I'm saying to take a breakout, you need to place your stop here or do whatever, or you need to look at this a certain way or look at this a certain. What I'm really saying, what most people are really saying, and not, the way that I listen to, this is based off of how I listen to people give advice, or people that go on and they share information. We'll just put it that way. A lot of times when they use the word "you," they really mean "I," right? So they are telling you something based off of their perspective, things that they believe, again, what they find is the right way to do something that works for them. But it's interesting and this one is interesting to me because of just the way that it's done, and it leads into stuff like, what's your true intent when I hear people talking like that, and mostly though, not even I don't even question the intent first, because I kind of like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I think a lot of people try to come from a genuine place. There are some people out there that are trying to, they're completely out for themselves, and they're trying to do what they do, right? But it's interesting to me because it's a reflection of your self-awareness and like to what you're saying. And see, even like I know this because I'm not even immune to this myself, because sometimes I catch myself using a "you" word when I actually mean me or I, right? So that's just something I think is important to be aware of, so that you really understand, you receive the message in a way that's going to serve you the best, right? And you almost have to look at it. You almost have to look for the got you. Like, you almost have to taking the information in a way that you think the person is full of shit. You know, it's the best way I can think to put it, you know, for lack of better words right now. Either that they're trying to just be out for themselves, or they're so locked into their own little world that they don't understand that what they're saying could only be beneficial for them and the people and other people and the small number of people that can relate to the things that they've been through. And actually what triggered this, like just as I'm watching these charts, is when I was talking about the short squeeze. And that brought this back up to mind where, you know, you have these thoughts to where we have this function of trading that we call scalping. And depending on who you ask, scalping can be anywhere from, you know, 1 tick to 200 ticks. And so, you know, a lot of times I see I'll see people go on their platform and they'll say that, you know, this is scalping, that's not scalping. But I mean, if you're in and out of trades, regardless of the size, regardless of the time frame, it can be looked at as scalping if it's intraday, depending on the perspective that's most important to you. So and here's a way of putting it. If I'm a day trader, if not a day trader, if I'm a swing trader, right, and I'm holding my positions 1 day or more, if I'm holding my positions a week or 2 weeks or whatever, right, more than a day, it can be reasonable for me to have a perspective that anybody that trades less than that or any trading less than that is scalping. So if I'm normally swing trading and I'm in and out of position within the same day, for me, that's scalping, right? Because that's relative to what I'm normally doing, right? Because this whole environment is based off of whatever perspective that you're viewing this price action and all this stuff from. So whatever it is that you're watching, whether you're watching the charts or you're watching news or numbers, what sense it makes to you is going to be based off of what you believe about this environment and what you believe about your place in this environment. So again, it kind of leads back. I'm kind of talking about the first rant again, but it's from a different perspective to where actually I covered 3 different rants right there in the same thing without even trying to do it, about, you know, when people go out and they talk about and they use the word you when you gotta, you know, just trying to say this in the right way. At the end of the day, it goes back to when you're picking up information externally, you really have to weigh it against whatever you hold to be true internally. And understanding is how you listen to the stuff, the advice, all the noise that's out here on these different platforms. Understanding that most people, when they say you, they mean I, right? And then everything is going to be based off of their own perspective. And on that note, that took me to a period where I need to get my numbers and do a volume check. The main thing I watch in terms of volume is NQ, and we didn't really see a big difference between when I first did a volume check around, I didn't get the time, so I think that was around like 9:15ish or maybe 9:20. So at that point, NQ had a volume of 234K, and now we're at 381, which is, in my personal opinion, kind of light for a you know, like the first hour of the session. You know, from my perspective, recently we've been having most of the participation happen before the New York Stock Exchange open, and then things are kind of spread out the rest of the participation throughout the rest of the session. Okay, and make sure I get my triggers. So I'm not gonna sit here and make you watch me do all this stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream, my session right here. I hope what I said, you know, helped someone out, and you found, you know, you found it valuable, and all that good stuff. Hope everybody have a good rest of the week, a good rest of your session today, and I'll see you on the next one. Trade it easy.
Today is the best day of your life.